Well, joining us for the Tuesday sports panel, it's a little different today. Of course, this is our first day back, is Evan Kenny. Evan, a few things on the NBA free agency front. We know the NHL free agency period is still going on, but NBA's kicked off very not too long ago. Some big names already to talk about a little bit later on, but one of the big things was at the draft, the Russell Westbrook trade, to the Los Angeles Lakers for a big package going back to Washington. So, Evan, just break down some of the key elements from that trade.
Yeah, Connor, you mentioned free agency. While this isn't exactly free agency, this does change how the LA Lakers are going to handle free agency. Now, obviously, they got a fantastic player here in Russell Westbrook. They gave up Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, and Caldwell Pope. So these are all three quality players. I mean, obviously, none of them quite to that level of Russell Westbrook this past season. Westbrook averaged over 22 points per game, 11.5 rebounds per game, and 11.7 assists. So he averages a triple-double throughout the season, every game in, game out. We all know he is Mr. Triple-Double. So now he's really just adding to what is now a three-headed beast for the LA Lakers with Anthony Davis and obviously LeBron James still on that team. So this does change how they go into free agency, Connor. Now, instead of looking for a big piece like a guy like Westbrook, they just traded for him, obviously. So now they can start filling in some of those key role players that really helped the Lakers win the championship 2 years ago. Already one of those guys that they have brought back from that championship team is Dwight Howard. These are the guys that they're going to need to continue to bring in. Just adding those depth players, those extra defensive players, those locker room type of guys will help different teams find success here, Connor.
And of course, with LeBron James getting older, he's going to need some of that help, especially up in the scoring front. That's why hopefully that AD and Westbrook could have a really good year together with the Lakers. And I know Lakers, we talked about with their free agency plans. I know Miami is another team to talk about, Evan. We all know that former Toronto Raptor Kyle Lowry is no longer with them. He did sign with Miami. We know there's lots of big moves in Miami there, and I know they've been a big player in this free agency period, Evan.
Yeah, Connor, not just former Raptor, but arguably the best Toronto Raptor of all time. He was really the heart and soul of that team, had been there for so long, and obviously helped lead them to that championship there. He signs for 3 years with the Miami Heat. And, I just mentioned, the big three with the LA Lakers. It seems like Miami's starting to make a big three of their own, but maybe focusing more on their own side of the court, their defensive end here. Obviously, Kyle Lowry, he's a fantastic player. He's a great off-ball defender as well. Pairing him up with Jimmy Butler, who led the league in steals last season, will just be phenomenal. Butler, another guy who just did re-sign an absolutely massive deal with the Miami Heat. And then finally, the third piece of that three-headed monster, Bam Adebayo, he's really started to break out and show he's a monster when it comes to the boards. He's great when it comes to defense. This was already a top 10 defense, Connor. Now, obviously, they're adding Kyle Lowry, just to build onto that defensive depth. We saw a guy who went absolutely off in these past playoffs with the Milwaukee Bucks. In PJ Tucker, he got signed for 2 years by the Miami Heat. So they're really looking to emphasize in that defensive side of the court. I mean, PJ Tucker, just one example, absolutely shut down Kevin Durant, stopping the Brooklyn Nets, or rather helping stop the Brooklyn Nets there. So these guys will be very valuable, already making a top 10 defense even that much better.
And you look at Miami Heat with Tyler Herro, hopefully he can have a bounce back year. I know he didn't have a great year coming off that NBA Finals appearance there that they did have against the Lakers, but he's a piece hopefully to look forward to down the road along with all the great signings and additions that they have. And one of the last things, Evan, we know that, like I said, free agency is still going on. We know some names have already signed, but who's left there that could find a home sooner than later, and who are some of those bigger names that hopefully can help a team win?
Well, Connor, there's definitely at least a number of big names still on the board. The two that jump out to my mind were actually in a deal with one another. DeMar DeRozan, while his age still is getting up there a little bit, he still has quite a bit to contribute. He was a top 25 scorer throughout the regular season in the NBA this year. Maybe he's not that number one piece that you build your franchise around anymore, but he's definitely a guy who can come in and help a team, push that extra mile to possibly get a championship. And the other guy, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, there is a good chance, Connor, he will miss the majority of this season. Obviously, hurting his ACL in the playoffs there will require surgery, but he's still one of the top five best players rather in the NBA. His defensive skills, his NBA championships, he sort of brings that all to the table. He did decline the extra player option from the LA Clippers. That was going to be for $36 million. So it will be interesting just knowing that he might be out this upcoming season, just seeing what he'll do. Connor, looking at some of the depth players, role players that are still left, I think a great player for somebody trying to make it to that championship push, Danny Green. He's a great utility player who can A, shoot three-pointers, but B, lock down teams defensively. A couple other guys who could contribute offensively. Victor Oladipo had that injury bug lately, but still a quality player. And then Carmelo Anthony. I mean, the guy has been around. He scored so many points throughout the NBA, just hasn't quite won that ship yet. So he will be looking for that. There's still quite a few good players out there, Connor.
And I look at some guys maybe like Malik Monk. He's still pretty young. He could still contribute right away. And then also even Reggie Jackson. He had a great year with the Clippers. Hopefully he can try to find success somewhere else there. Evan Kenny, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Connor.